I bet when some people see this, either searching on the internet or on Steam, their mind's completely flatlined. An anime JRPG World War II inspired tactics game with androgynous teenagers fighting the equivalent of God. Then, on top of that, you add a heap of obvious anime tropes and other stupid bullshit? Yeah, but what if I told you this game is actually good? And is considered one of the greatest games ever made. Not only is it a challenging game that can leave you on the edge of your seat with many moments you will probably remember for years to come, but since this is a game inspired from the Second World War II, a war known for being incredibly brutal to everyone who lived through it, and having some rather hokey moments, this game delves into certain topics within World War II that other games have barely scratched the surface of. Yet, the rather dark subject matters within World War II will clash with the obvious elephant in the room, and its many isms. More on that later. And as you probably know now from the broadcast's name, the footage on screen, and my crap advertising, I'm talking about Valkyria Chronicles, produced by one of my favourite publishers of all time, House of the Blue Subsonic Mammal. A developer that made one of my favourite racing games ever made, and many other games that everyone else likes, including me, loves. Valkyria Chronicles was produced by Shuntaro Tanaka, Takahiro Terada, and Ryutaro Nonaka, and originally was released for the PlayStation 3 on November 4th, 2008. It would later be ported to many other systems like the Windows PCs, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch between 2014 and 2018. And now I am sure everyone knows what this game is all about, so let us all see if this game is worth anyone's time in this day and age. To add quickly, I will use the Windows PC port from 2014 for this broadcast you can only find on Steam. So, let's send 12-year-olds into the battlefield in the name of Gallia. I'm not joking about that. See Welkin eat 5 loaves of bread and keep his waistline. Dude, what are your tips? And let's run over your own squad members and see them ragdoll and scream across the battlefield.
Here we go!
So, let's set forth, liberate our land from the imps, watch that beach episode that will inevitably show up in this game, and let us all delve into Valkyria Chronicles. So, when one boots up Valkyria Chronicles for the first time, you will be surprised by the unique visuals of the game. Well, except for the CGI cutscenes you will see occasionally. Every time I see them, I get Berserk 2016 immediately recalled to my mind. Okay, that is a harsh criticism. It's not as clunky looking as that, nor as morbidly distracting. But when you jump from the traditional 2D inspired visuals to the 3D character models, it's quite a jolt. Using the Canvas engine solely designed for this game, it gives a unique and, well, let's be honest here, standout water painting-like appearance that few other games have done, even the games that would follow it. Maybe except Okami. Like a book in motion, it has a variety of vibrant colours of many shades, the onomatopoeia to reinforce the game's visual design in battle. This is one of the best features of this game, in more ways than one. Everything else about the visuals are top-notch. The levels and the skyboxes are gorgeous. But it's a crying shame that most of the time you'll probably be more focused on not being spotted by hostiles, taking cover from their line of sight, and exacting revenge on the Imperials for gunning down your favourite waifu. Inspired by idealised and fantasised images of Holland and Switzerland in World War II, alongside some desert terrain to add variety, you will traverse many stages in your many hours of gameplay, with each battlefield providing a variety of environments and conditions that you can utilise in defeating the enemy. The urban environment of Rangries and Brule with its wide open streets, narrow alleyways to use in ambush, and the rooftops to snipe the enemy from, then slink away. The forests of Cloden and elsewhere with large grass paddies to use in hiding and ambushing the enemy, and narrow paths to slip past and, again, ambush said enemy. And as another example, the deserts of the east provided a mixture of terrains to use, and the occasional sandstorm that could be used to sneak enemy forces closer to you, or the opposite way around for you on them. Though this is a simplified description with each example, each battlefield has a variety of features that can be used to help win a battle, thusly making each battlefield and battle different and providing unique challenges to each. Trenches, elevators, grass paddies, watchtowers, trams, rooftops, sandbag walls, all there to be used and to help make victory even more possible. And even in areas where you do not fight in, but see in the backgrounds, are just as majestic and idealistic. You will only see this at one level, but look at this! It's amazing! looks like someone from Austria, and your temporary headquarters around Greece gives off a regal, majestic and an orderly capital of the royal family. And whilst the stages are great to fight within, the characters and the factions all look incredible and individually distinct from one another. And not only in just in character design, but also the weapons and the vehicles each side uses. Say whatever you want about anime and its many, isms, we could all agree at least that the character designs are always distinct, individual and memorable. Alongside the main characters of Welkin, Alicia, Isara, Rose, Largo and Zaka, the side characters you will command are all stars. Getting you attached to them and outright hating them as they rise through the ranks, win victories and make you upset if they die, or wishing you for them to just simply fuck off. You'll recognise your Jane's, favourite waifu by the way, and Marina's, my other favourite waifu, as the no-nonsense lone wolves simply by design alone. To those certain characters that appeared in that one JRPG everyone loves, and had everyone waiting for nearly 2 decades to get a sequel to, your conscripted 12-year-olds to your Elvis impersonators and so on. Each character stands out very well, and the same can be said for the characters of the Empire. The extravagant imperial presence of Maximilian, the aristocratic snobbiness of Gregor, the rugged nobility of Radi, and the striking sex symbol and femme fatale of the game known as Silvaria Bless. A character so beloved by fans of the game, the collective thought processes of the fans would bring her back to life in the other games of the series. And many idols would be made for the weeps to worship and offer as sacrifices to this day. That, as well as some, interesting artwork. If they don't look like any of the following descriptions, most Imperial figures either look slimy, disgusting, or just outright creepy. Jesus Christ. Yes, character designs are fantastic and memorable, but the faction design is also very well made. Again, distinct from one another. As per their story and lore, the Gallian armed forces are a voluntary/conscript army intent on mobilising as many bodies as possible in times of war. So visually, Gallia's equipment is lighter, cheaper to produce in high numbers, and more modular and ready for more customization than, let's say, the Empire to compensate for the situation. That you can see when you upgrade the weapons during your time fighting not World War II. The guns start as simple and basic, yet over time, they become bulkier, more experimental. Weapon barrels become longer, magazines become larger, again depending on the upgrades you go for. It's great as it shows clear progression of the player and adds character to the Gallian weapons. Now compare that to the Empire, a vast nation hell-bent on conquering everything that opposes them. Its military must convey that of brute force and intimidation to scare the opposition, and it does. The Empire looks fucking cool, looking grim and stoic in their dark greys, reds and blacks, and giving off a medieval diesel punk kind of aesthetic with historical influences from Austro-Hungary, Imperial Russia and Germany in a phase. The equipment of the Empire emphasises might and power, alongside looking like something from the 1930s and early 1940s. Same again can be said about their tanks. Heavily based off historical tanks like the German Stug tank, the Soviet BT series of tanks, the Japanese Type 95 Hago tank, and the American M3 Lee tank. The only difference to their historical inspirations is to make them larger and more imposing, adding to the Empire's intimidation from the eyes of the characters. But overall, the visuals are great, the art direction is inspired, the characters are memorable and truly individual with quirks and radical designs. And the levels are fun, creative and add a unique way to fight and overcome the foe. But of course you will encounter glitches here and there, though functionally the game runs near perfectly. So what glitches will you see? The occasional clipping of textures and models, enemy AI suddenly speeding up when running, and on a certain mission you may see the unfortunate souls of the dead be dragged back to hell. But overall, the performance is near perfect. And as stated before, the visuals are fantastic with some hiccups here and there. But yeah, great, despite it all. Now I've talked long enough about the visuals, let's discuss sound now. Now, whilst the visuals continue to look graceful and beautiful ever since its original release in 2008, fucking hell, how many years now? When it comes to sound, however, well, it depends on what you are investigating when it comes to sound. Some aspects may sound amazing with maximum effort given to it. Other times, it drops the ball, sounding awful, stilted, or just out of place. And some other times, it just sits comfortably in the middle. The music in this game is alright, but nothing too grand. Now it must be me, but Sega just knows who to choose when it comes to making some amazing official soundtracks for their game, alongside their very creative and outstanding games of the past. So many examples I can think of. Sega GT 2002/Online, Skies of Arcadia, Sonic Heroes, Jet Set Radio and the Yakuza series. Now this is to be added to their amazing library of musical bliss, although it tends to be cliché, this soundtrack sadly. Composed by Hitoshi Sakimoto, a composer known for his work within many games like Final Fantasy XII and Tekken 6, and in collaboration with the Eminence Symphony Choir, the soundtrack of Valkyria Chronicles delivers a very operatic and epic soundtrack to match the warfare you will be seeing. You will be hearing very militaristic themes of drums and choir when the situation becomes tense and battle commences. But alongside the militarized themes, in times of peace and planning the next move in cutscenes, the musical choice becomes more relaxed and very JRPG inspired with more use of calmer instruments. So either planning the next move into the ongoing conflict in Gallia, actively engaging the enemy within the ruins of a once peaceful town in a heroic struggle against a vast and overbearing opponent, or seeing the upcoming moves of the Imperial forces and crossing your fingers that none of your troops will become casualties. There is also one little issue with the music in this game, however. Sometimes it is far louder than the dialogue of certain characters, so the epic operatic soundtrack swells at a certain milestone of an event, but the character tries to state the obvious in vain as they are barely audible.
We've blown open the damaged area on the Marmota's side! Yes, the plating on that spot was vulnerable after all. Sir, part of the side plating damaged in that explosion appears usable as a foothold.
Thank fuck for subtitles and changeable audio control, but overall it's not bad at all, with many great themes placed throughout the game, adding a variety of emotions in and out of battle, and notable moments throughout your adventures in the game. Even if the soundtrack does sound a little cliché, the sound effects and battlefield ambience are also good, more in the middle pretty much. But at the same time, it can also get repetitive and can sound very stock at times, especially with the guns.
Nothing personal.
So of course, like in every other Japanese game I have ever played, this game has the shrill sound effect of menu selection and navigation. You know what I mean. It's a Japanese game, so I'll let it slide. The in-game ambience is also very good, if again a little repetitive, as you and your squad partake in the dance of death. Fitting. Your ears will pick up the background ambience of battle all around you as you tab into battle. This is great as it makes the player and your squad feel like one part of a larger battle rather than within its own individual reality or space. The clattering of gunfire and stock machine gun sound effects, the thuds of cannons and explosives in the distance, the rumbling of tank engines, the zapping of compromised electronics and expended energy, and the crumbling of concrete under the overbearing weight of tank treads are some of the many ambiences that spices up the environment of battle.
Here I come!
Bang, bang, baby!
Man down, everybody be careful.
Yet the most common one you'll hear is the radio chatter.
Watch your surroundings.
In every battle and every chapter and every skirmish, you will hear radio chatter from the Gallias, the Empire, and Command during your turns in combat. As your battles progress, you will hear constant radio chatter from both sides talking about the ongoing battle, sometimes uttering nonsense. Other times they will give you advice to things you already know about,
Don't come out of cover until you have to.
or give orders to other units also engaged further away.
Time your shots carefully, soldiers.
But sometimes when you annihilate a hostile or take a count from hostiles, you'll either get a snarky quip from command or shock from the Empire, constantly asking who are these guys. It adds atmosphere and some comedy to the game, but good fucking gods, does it ever get repetitive. And finally, voice acting, and as you can tell, from the sounds of things obviously, I played this with the English dub. Dubs for the win. And the overall performance is very good with very clear and crisp deliveries, although at times some deliveries are awful and have the tendency of stating the fucking obvious at times during your adventures. But over the course of the game, you'll hear some knockout performances here and there, especially from Valkyria Bless, one of the best voice acted characters in the game.
Cobalt flames of the Valkyria. Smite our foes! All forces, there stands Gallia! Claim her!
I have come to fight you again. It's a matter of pride. But this time, I will face you as a woman. This will be our last time then. One of us is going to die here. Now, we fight!
Yet, even though the performances can vary between each of the characters you will see in the game, as stated before, the anime isms will always persist, and can get incredibly annoying to some people the more you encounter them. What am I talking about? Well, the short gasps, for example, the over-exaggerations when issuing orders, and with certain potentials being activated, stating the absolute obvious.
Wow. Squad leader's a lot of responsibility.
Repeating the last sentence as a question even though it was stated earlier.
I don't know, but that blue flame is the same as that Valkyria's.
You don't mean... You saying Alicia's Valkyria?
Yeah, there are a few niggling issues here and there, but they are more personal nitpicks from yours truly. But this makes the game's overall tone go through very jarring tone swings. And I have a lot to say about that, but I need to discuss gameplay further, for there is a lot to mention. Now, gameplay. Oh boy, here we go, the longest segment of the review. 3,634 words on describing the gameplay of this game. So, when it comes to the gameplay aspect of this game, well, it's brilliant, yet also very frustrating in some parts with various rules of play that keeps the game being deceptively challenging. But overall provides a great experience to the player, a variety of rules that keeps many of the missions interesting and not so repetitive, and moments and characters you will probably remember for years to come. But the battles are just one of several things you will do during your extensive adventures. To such an extent it pretty much becomes a routine. This routine includes watching plenty of cutscenes that add story elements and character building to the characters,
Okay, so...
saving before battle, battling, and improving your troops and weapons, before doing it all again in the next chapter. All part of the course of the game, so get used to it. The battles you are partaking are in a turn-based format with the utilization of command points and action points to navigate, fight, and enhance your abilities to win the battles. Battle interface is separated into three formats. Firstly is the command mode, showing a bird's eye view of the map along with your unit in blue, positions, discovered enemy units in red, and their line of sight, golden line above the enemy unit, as well as the objectives you will seek to hold, reach, or destroy, as well as battlefield features like buildings, forests, and usable objects. Once you have decided on what to do, you will use your command points to select your unit of choice. 1 CP for infantry units and 2 for tanks, ordering your reserves in camps you have and have taken from the enemy, as well as issuing orders that can improve your combat or defensive abilities for your squad or entire team. Once you've chosen your unit of choice, you transition to action mode, the third-person mode where you control the movements of the unit across the map. This gives the player the opportunity to scout across the map, find alternative paths to your destination, get into the position in advantageous locations like tall grass, trenches and areas breaking line of sight, as well as discover hidden hostile units and, when first discovered, that the enemy fires back at you during your turn. That is bound to piss off quite a few players when they play this game for the first time. Navigating the landscape followed by a cacophony of rifle shots, grunts. Then when you reach your destination, you realise your unit has half its health sapped out of you. Or you get incapacitated. That you have seen is Valkyria Chronicles battle system called Blitz, appropriately named, or Battle of Live Tactical Zones, described as real-time turn-based tactics. The reality is that when the player moves their units within sight of enemy units, they will open fire and try to take you down as you traverse the battlefield. This adds risk to your tactical choices, making you think before you move. Maybe add smoke, use a different unit, or work around it with additional moves. And yet it makes it more rewarding to get into position and overcome this situation. But holy crap, can it infuriate you in certain circumstances. Some examples may include when you're preparing to aim at an enemy. The animation has a delay of a couple of seconds, so hostiles will manage to gain a few cheeky hits on you before lining up on the enemy. So if your character is low on health, 1. You get killed, get captured by the enemy, get quite a depressing cutscene as they mutter their last, and then you curse your gods for this tragedy as your favourite character dies, slowly, with depressing orchestral music playing in the background.
Damn you, imps. I'll haunt the filthy lot of you.
And 2, why would you do that? Just heal yourself. The other example is the bullets start flying as soon as you take control of a certain unit. Just, good fucking gods, give me some fucking breathing room! But as soon as you aim your weapon, the world stops. Everyone freezes. The target looks into your eyes with horrific trepidation and awaits the potential outcome. Regardless of using either a sniper rifle, marksman rifle, or a machine gun, always aim for the head. This leads to critical hits if it connects several times and annihilates the enemy, but this can happen to you as well, so always find cover. But, yes, another but, RNG, the random number git, makes his appearance during this game, and with steep difficulty curves with some missions and chapters, there will be some times you will need to retry, and during those retries you will notice certain shots you took before are suddenly failing this time. Yet, I guess this adds to the challenge, and it happens to the enemy as well. As with every other tactics/strategy game, you will have several units with different functions and roles to fulfill on the battlefield, along with their potentials and their weaknesses to utilize on the battlefield. In Valkyria Chronicles, you will have up to 6 unit types to use in achieving victory over the enemy. Each have abilities to use, certain equipment to utilize, and are effective against certain units like a rock, paper, scissors sort of system, and are useful in certain situations. First among them are the scouts. With the highest amount of action points, these scouts can move further than most and fulfill their role in, well, scouting. Armed with a rifle, what they lack in firepower, they instead rely on slightly better accuracy. Later being able to use rifle grenades, the scouts are best used for hit and run tactics and scouting further ahead. If you upgrade them enough though, they can become the most overpowered unit in the game. Move at a considerable distance, hit harder, and potentially win in a battle in 1 or 2 turns. But I didn't do that because I had to play it properly, and you need to be a certain level to do a certain strategy with that unit. And it took me 38 hours to finish the game, so it took me long enough to finish this damn thing. Anyway, next unit. Up next are the shock troopers, your assault force, and if used properly, an effective defense troop. Adept in down in infantry and clearing out trenches, they are also more resistant to gunfire, for a certain amount of time. Armed with a machine gun that can gun down opponents in seconds and can later be upgraded to be equipped with flamethrowers. Close to medium combat is the name of the game for shock troopers, but their movement points aren't great, mostly to simulate fatigue after sprinting. So use them for quick surgical strikes on enemy positions and as an improvised NG nests in trenches and high grass. Waddling behind them are the lancers. As you can tell, they aren't cavalry, as amazing as that would have been. Nope, they are your anti-tank unit. Armed with their rocket launchers, they obviously excel in disabling and destroying tanks. If aimed at their tracks, and clearly highlighted engine block, respectively. As a bonus, Lancers have the highest defense and can survive several tank shells to the face before dying, but this comes at a cost of having very inaccurate weapons, so you need to be relatively close to your target, even tanks, to use it properly. Don't even bother using it against infantry. On top of that, the movement speed is incredibly slow and their action points run out really quickly. So deploy them close to base or save them as reserves for later deployments to compensate for their low range. They can be upgraded to use mortars later on, but I never used it as the tanks have a more effective mortar. And everyone else has hand grenades, so they can use that to clear out entrenched infantry. Far behind them, and usually hiding behind a tank, are the engineers. More combat facilitators than the frontline unit, the engineers are best used for keeping your tank fit and healthy. But on top of that, they can disable mines, reassemble sandbag cover, and resupply ammo to your other combat troops. So always have one by, but their combat effectiveness is near non-existent. So don't even try to use them in combat. Oh, and their defense is also non-existent, and during my time playing this game, my engineers have been taken out so many damn times by so many bullshit attacks, as well as hindsightedness of not placing them in cover, so that one's my fault. So, keep them engineers behind cover.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Are you shitting me?
The last infantry you'll command is the sniper. Armed with a sniping rifle, they are extremely effective against, well, infantry, unless RNG screws them over. Yet, they have very little action points to move, and their defense is extremely low, so if they're caught in the open, yeah, you're screwed. Unless the sniper was hiding behind the armoured beast of the battlefield, the tank, commanding both a heavy battle tank and a light scout tank. These vehicles require 2 command points to use, making them an expensive unit to use, so one needs to be certain when to utilise these war beasts. But if used efficiently, tanks make great mobile cover for infantry to use to help them advance easier. They have a neat feature of crushing anything ahead of them, so cover, walls, sandbags can be easily crushed. This also has a hilarious tendency of sending soldiers flying across the battlefield ragdoll style, even your own. Sometimes you may even hear them before you see it. Your tanks are also come bristling with heavy weapons. The Edelweiss comes with anti-tank rounds, mortar rounds, smoke rounds, and a coaxial machine gun, whilst the Jamrock is equipped, depending on the player of course, with either a Gatling gun, a flamethrower, or a light cannon, along with its coax machine gun as well. So there are plenty of ways to annihilate the opposition with your tank. Also, both tanks have 2 health bars, one for the main tank's health, and the other for either the tracks or for the additional turrets. So you can come up with devious ways to trap then annihilate the vehicle. But of course, like every other unit, tanks also have their own problems. Firstly, they are so danged slow. These aren't A-brand tanks, so they will trudge across the landscape as gracefully as a landbound iceberg. And occasionally, they will get stuck on the landscape. You will waste your remaining action points just trying to get them unstuck. Absolutely fun. On top of that, not only is action points used to move the bastard, but it also is used to turn the thing. So you need to be extra conservative with your tank's moves. And finally, whilst the tank is near impervious to bullets, if shot at the engine blocks and tracks, they can get slightly damaged, but watch the hell out for rocket launchers, anti-tank guns, mines, and other hostile tanks. If you see them, kill them, for if they land a direct hit on you, it's game over regardless of your mission progress. Trust me, I have paid the price more than once. The mission structure within the game is usually simple enough, that objective being either capturing an enemy camp, reaching a certain location and destroying an enemy unit. Simple yes, but there will always be obstacles to overcome. One mission your units may be split up across a map. In another you are attacked from 2 different directions. Sometimes certain battles will go through certain phases. Then there are some missions where they rely more on stealth or speed or manipulating the battlefield to your advantage. This is one of the best features of the game. Every mission feels not only thematically different, but each mission is constructed in creative ways that it never gets repetitive. Same with the level design, so unless you had to retry the mission, you don't really know what you'll be facing. And you'll have to think on your feet in some missions to overcome certain obstacles like searchlights, MG bunkers, and special units, always adding tension to certain battles. But also, on top of the mission layout, certain terrains and the hostiles you'll send screaming towards the afterlife, there are many hints that can be used to make battlefield survival easier. If you are near another friendly unit, or units, and a hostile approaches, they will provide supporting fire, decimating anyone who is dumb enough to advance towards several gun barrels pointed at them. However, if you and an enemy unit survive an attack, said units would retaliate, shooting at a unit who attacked them until they either die, or the most annoying case scenario, whittled down to a slither of health that manages to survive. Despite being the military superpower, the AI of the Empire is not very smart in this game. I've seen them charge at my tank head on only to be gunned down. I've seen generals literally just break down and issue orders to themselves as their army was dead, and then fire smoke rounds into the same alleyway repeatedly. Either that or they're just really cheap, aiming for your weakest unit on the field or reusing the same orders. Oh, and you may notice glowing lines above the enemy's heads when you're out in the open. It is something you have to take heed to with these lines, for these are the lines of sight, highlighting which units are in attack range, and where their units are and showing those who are shooting as you move. So, as you near the end of your unit's turn, always try to break line of sight, hiding behind or finding cover, as it gives you a substantial defense boost against incoming attacks. Unless cover is destroyed or in the open, but unlike other games of this ilk, you can reuse units from before, add into your tactics or a ticket out of danger and out of sight. The caveat however is that you get less movement points every time you select a used unit from before, almost to the point where they can only move so far, so don't overuse it or you'll find yourself stranded and far from help. Instead you may want to use orders, with all of its dramatic gestures and over the top screen effects. Using a certain amount of action points, depending on how potent the ability is, Orders can provide a single unit or the entire squad a boost to their defense or attacks. If used to its potential, you can turn an ordinarily unimpressive unit and characters into gods of war. That happened in one mission, and the following story had me on the edge of my seat, and I was literally cheering for joy over what happened first. So, Alicia was holding a trench with 2 downed comrades next to her, killed by a war witch. Charging at her position were 3 Imperial elites, a lancer and 2 shock troopers, but with her boosted defense and evasion, she held firm. The 3 approached the trench and fired their shots. Some of them hit, wounding her, but she stood firm still, raining down retaliatory fire on them, sapping them to half their health. Though wounded, the 3 Imperials moved to get a better firing angle and took a few more shots at my girl. Fatal mistakes. The first shock trooper misses and then went down. Jubilation. Then the second moved in, taking a few hits on the side. The imp fires, but Alicia ducks in time. She takes aim, fires her shots, and wham! The last stormtrooper goes down. The hype was real. I was on the end of my seat, yet becoming filled with dread as the lancer made his move right into Alicia's face. He aimed his lancer, point blank. I wins, fearing the outcome. Then, she ducks, the rocket misses, and she returns fire, killing all of them. Oh, the fucking euphoria over the most epic moment I have ever seen. Alicia the Annihilator. Shame she was gunned down by the War Witch on the next turn though. But this little tale should highlight the power these orders can give to your squad. Early in the game you'll barely use them, but from the mid-game onwards, these can make progression potentially easier, or at least give you more of a fighting chance on tougher stages. And finally, since this is a JRPG as much as it is a turn-based tactics game, your characters will have various traits that could make them or break them as soldiers on the battlefield. At first you would read certain traits like fancies women or country bred or a veggie maniac. You'll probably wonder who the hell cares. Yeah, it adds humanity and character to all the soldiers under your command, which is another great strength this game has. But what does it provide to your soldiers' fighting potential? It adds buffs or debuffs to their abilities in battle. Buffs that add more damage to their attacks, higher damage to certain units, more ammo after each turn, or being more resistant to damage, and debuffs obviously do the opposite. Each of these buffs require a condition to trigger in these battles, known as potentials. So being near someone they like, hence the other names you probably see on their character sheet, attacking a certain unit, being in range of other hostile units, attacking a near dead foe, and being within a certain environment, regardless you will know when it triggers with its all the overreactions, over the top screen effects, and the interruption of gameplay. It can get bad at times when you can potentially get multiple potentials triggered one after another, especially if you control a commander unit.
I'm a weapon. No, a shield. Think you can stop me? I'm taking extra special care.
What's your situation?
You could have 4 potentials trigger within the space of 15 seconds,
Gotta love nature.
but the benefits to your battlefield survival does outweigh the goofiness, so I guess you'll have to tolerate the in-your-face anime bullshit. But there is much more to gain when you win battles in this game, besides PTSD and sleepless nights. Depending on how long it takes for you to finish the mission and the number of hostiles killed, you will get graded. What is with Japanese games and grading you? And then be rewarded ducats and experience points, and the potential of captured enemy weapons for use, though I wouldn't recommend using them personally. So what do you do with these points? Well, you head back to HQ, and you will use experience points to train and upgrade your soldiers in the training field manned by this fine fellow.
Welcome to your worst nightmare, maggots!
All your collected XP is then used to train up your troops, but what you have is what you get between all classes, so be careful with your points between the 5 classes.
Train all you want! I've got all day!
The training will help improve the unit's health, stamina, and the chance of unlocking powerful potentials. Keep training until level 11, and then they become elites, gaining vastly improved traits and unlocking more items for them to use in the field of battle. The ducats are used to help improve your squad's weapons and tanks. Head over to R&D and be greeted by Leo, a guy who should not be trusted with tools. On the why.
Oh, damn anime! Look what's happened to my eyes!
You use your ducats to improve your weapons, armor, grenades, and tank parts and make them more effective against higher level enemies. But once you reach a certain upgrade, you can upgrade your guns further and either make them more accurate, damaging, or add debuff effects to their attacks, changing in appearance as you upgrade them, which is a great visual indicator of progression. Same with the tanks, becoming more heavily armoured as the game progresses. But ducats can also be used to buy side missions from the writing on the wall, adding extra chapters that looks further into the characters and their backstories, whilst also expanding on the lore of the world and the events outside your squad's control. Some strong world building, and you can learn more about it within the glossary section, which I would highly recommend reading. But to add further to the game's long playtime and to add character to your squad members, the last segment of gameplay is the vast amount of cutscenes you will
That's
watch.
good. We've finally recovered possession of our old homestead.
Yeah. But if Isara saw it as it is now, I think she'd feel sad. I mean, look at it. Empty of all the people who lived here, the mill just barely standing.
Yet, even though these cutscenes can't be skipped, they are fantastic in just adding individuality to the main squad members. These cutscenes explore each character and their personal dreams, quirks, ambitions, and their growing relationships with each other within the squad you command, as well as question certain subjects like prejudice, why they fight, and humanity within the natural world and how they fit.
That facing the truth makes a person grow.
Mr. Zaka.
And hey, we're still young. Let's enjoy life. It's up to us to change other folks' minds.
As a human being, I couldn't just sit by and watch a man in pain without trying to do something.
We always called him a mama's boy, sir. And now... Sorry, Fritz. I wish we could have been there for you.
It adds a Band of Brothers vibe of brotherhood, friendship, and tragedy to the game's story, which is something I never thought I would say to a game like this, filled with equally added anime tropes of love triangles, a beach episode that sadly is a D-Day, and weird anime bullshit that sticks out like a sore thumb over the moments of the war's brutality. Seriously, the tone is all over the place. But overall, the gameplay is great, adding a great amount of challenge with satisfying gameplay. When the battle is on, it is engaging and at points extremely entertaining, but can be just as infuriating with enemy cheap shots and sessions ending when your key character dies, despite initial progress. Not only that, but also the game comes to a grinding halt just as you suddenly have to watch a plethora of story and character significant cutscenes, and the constant back and forth of returning to HQ for constant upgrades and shopping after every chapter. But overall, it is very engaging when the gameplay actually happens. Ugh. Right, that took long enough to explain. Now let's talk about the story. It's story time now, my fellow subjects, and this time I have a book to read to you lot, On the Galleon Front by Irene Kohler. You'll meet her during your adventures, your source of what you will see during Galleon's war against the Empire, so as always, there will be spoilers to the story and what happens. But since I'm a nice guy, I'm going to give a spoiler warning to those who want to discover this rather gripping story that tackles some interesting and sensitive topics that even other games set within a World War II setting, or within World War II itself, tend to ignore, albeit changed to meld into the world building of Valkyria Chronicles. Also, I will talk about the main story, for there is a crap load of stuff to talk about as it is. So, for those who want to avoid spoilers, go to here. Let's move out then. The game takes place in Europa in the year of 1935. The two main powers of the continent, the Federation and the Empire, vying for the resource of multiple uses known as Ragnite, and wanting to settle the score from the First War, initiate the Second European War. Gallia, a small neutral principality sandwiched between the two, and the place where the action takes place, gains the Empire's attention. Emboldened by their recent successes against the Federation, putting them on the defense, and tempted by the vast Ragnite mines, the Empire seeks to control the nation and its resources. And the story begins with the main character. Vulcan Gunther, son of Gallian war hero Belgan Gunther, is captured outside the town of Rule by the Town Watch and Alicia Melchiot, a duty-driven yet sensitive soul, and accuses him of being a spy since he is doodling and talking to fish.
Beautiful. Starting early this year. You're heading upstream, huh? How's the water?
He's fucking nuts!
But lucky for Welkin, Isara, a Darkson, hence a different appearance, manages to get Welkin free in time for Imperial scouts to attack refugees, giving you a tutorial level with some of the most aggressive tutorial prompts I have ever seen in a game, and the next chapter following, you'll get the same thing. Not so aggressive scouts though, who are downed in 2 turns. And for a while after, there is peace. The gang returns to Brule and prepare to evacuate as the town is on the border near the Empire, and in this moment, Isara and Welkin head home to pack up. Meet up with Martha, who has watched over them ever since their parents have died, some backstory on them, and Alicia begins her obvious yet not so obvious flirting trope. Thankfully, the Empire attacks before that horror happens, shelling Mill Plaza, killing civilians and calling Martha and Isara fat and stinky.
So, we got ourselves a fat one and a stinky one.
The gang battles for survival as the Imperials advance further into town. After bypassing a tank and an advance group, Vulcan returns home to rescue Isara and Martha from invading Imperials, then commandeers the Edelweiss tank, a hand-me-down from his dad, in case of emergencies. And as Alicia and the town guard hold the line against the Imperial assault on the town gates, Welkin attacks the Imperials from behind, saving the town guard.
Woohoo!
Oh, and Martha is mother to another kid now, as she gave birth during the battle.
Welks, it's a boy. Martha had a boy.
She gave birth in Dad's tank?
Yes, and without complications. They're both perfectly healthy.
God, can you imagine the mess, the smell, the noise, the number of hours needed to not only clean but then decontaminate the interior of the tank? No, me neither. Moving on. After vowing to return to Brule when the war is over, the gang move on to the capital of Randgrease and get conscripted into the Gallian militia. Alicia is promoted to Sergeant and Welcome is promoted to Lieutenant, since he arrived in a tank and commands Squad 7 of the Gallian militia. Here, we meet a few new characters also. Faldio, another officer of the militia and friend of Welkin who specialises in Valkyrian archaeology. Your commanding officer, Eleanor Varrot, a cold yet professional officer and pretty much the den mother of the militia forces. And you get 2 unit commanders added for free. Rosie, or Bitch! I called her for a while. Brash, hot-headed, yet a brave shock trooper who has issues with the Darksim race, mostly Usara. And then there is Largo, a veteran lancer, something of a big brother figure for the squad, yet slow to trust anyone at first. And this guy loves vegetables. It's quite alarming actually, and you will hear it a lot. And that is just the main characters. You have Irene Kohler, the snobby yet sharp-witted journalist tag-along.
That's right. The name's Ellet. I'm GBS Radio's top woman reporter. I smell a story. A good story. And you guys are it.
So, you're a reporter?
Very good. I'm a reporter, yes.
Borg von Damon.
Whatever. They're just country mice.
The fat asshole general. Zaka, who commands a light tank that is useful for a few missions. The slimy court members. Princess Cordelia. The characters of the Empire. Your squad members and many others that would make sporadic appearances. JRPGs really love their vast cast of characters, don't they? The various chapters throughout the game will delve the player into the various exploits that would make Squad 7 famous throughout this war, and see various character arcs. You will see the trust within the squad grow, as Welkin wins various victories against the Empire with unorthodox and daring tactics, using them to take back both sides of the Vassal Bridge by submerging a tank, using speed and surprise to overcome a supply camp in the Cloden Woods, overcoming a larger force within the Barrios Desert, successfully sneaking behind enemy lines despite patrols and heavy artillery, defending against a heavy enemy attack then counter-attack, storm a heavily fortified beach only for Isara to die, and Welkin barely shedding a tear, liberate the oppressed Darksons from the concentration camps in Thousand, and kill a general in a very dramatic way.
Tank is the bedrock of the Empire itself. Unshakable. Invincible!
And rescue the princess from a Federation Black Ops kidnapping, showing immense gratitude afterwards.
Your Highness, are you alright?
I am unharmed. Oh, good.
And that's just the main campaign. You'll also have some side stories.
Yeah.
Alicia's constant flirting with Welcome and feeding him 5 loaves of bread with a cup of coffee on the side.
Smells great.
Largo lifting a blockade of supplies to Randgrease. Varrot staging a raid against an Imperial general known for cruelty against hostages, and to heal a deep wound from the last war. And Rosie, having changed from a recent tragedy, convinces the squad to bring down a Darkson hunt. But these aren't linked to the main story. These are the main events that the player and Squad 7 will witness during the war that will shape Gallia's history afterwards. The story begins to gather pace around Chapter 7. After various defeats, the Emperor Maximilian, the main antagonist with a massive obsession with the ancient yet revered and powerful Valkyria race that once ruled the continent, sends one of his generals, Selvaria Bless, descendant of the Valkyria, to stall and blunt the Gallian forces with her immense power. In sheer desperation to overcome this new threat, Alicia is shot by Faldio after an altercation in an ancient Valkyria temple.
Faldio!
She awakens with her newly founded powers, and with the assistance of the Gallian forces, forces the Empire back towards Fort Ghilandio, on the Gallian Imperial border, the Imperial's first conquest. Breaching the walls in a vicious siege using explosive-laden carriages, Squad 7 corners Bliss within the walls of the fort and captures her, and 3 sniper shots to the face. After being handed over to the lard-ass Marcus Phoenix, Bless uses her final flame, a magical nuclear explosion, on the fort, destroying the core Gallian army, leaving only the militia and Squad 7 left to defend the country.
Valkyria.
All part of the Emperor's plan. After the explosion, Maximilian unleashes his ultimate weapon, the land dreadnought Marmota, into Gallia in a mad dash towards the capital of Randgries. Squad 7 is tasked into diverting its course away from the capital, collapsing hillsides to divert its path. But it keeps rolling forward regardless. Alicia then turns to a Valkyrie state and manages to damage the vehicle with her lance. And in a state of despair, proposes to use the final flame on the Marmota. But Welkin uses the power of love to stop her and take down the Marmota using the power of human achievement over godly powers. As the Marmota crashes into Randgries and claims the Valkyrian lands within Randgries Castle, Squad 7 smashes through the final Imperial defensive line in Randgries, led by Raddy. The final battle comes into fold. Outside the capital, Squad 7 and the rest of the militia battle the Imperial army outside the immensely armoured and armed Marmota. Using Alicia's attack from earlier as leverage, Lancers climb up towards the main gun of the dreadnought and destroy it, whilst the remainder fight off Imperial counterattacks nearby, as well as dodge cannons and machine gun turrets on the dreadnought. With the cannon down, the squad climbs the Marmota proper, and faces a mecha god Maximilian in the final and rather climatic showdown. Using a couple of tricks, a few orders, taking down a few energy shields, and several liberal uses of headshots, Maximilian falls in 2 turns. Both metaphorically and literally, as Faldio sacrifices himself alongside the Emperor by falling to death. The Marmota is destroyed, the squad escapes, and the Imperial Gallian War is over in a supposed Imperial military disaster. In the end, it gives a quick glimpse of what the main characters would do years after the war. Some would marry and live idealized lives. Others would travel the world, and our 2 main heroes would marry, following their dream jobs, and have a child named Isara, ending the game on an emotional and very human high note. The end. So, after nearly 34 hours of conquering this game with many retries, seeing as many highs and equally as many lows, do I recommend this game? Well, depends really. For its gameplay, absolutely. Combining a unique blend of role-playing game mechanics, unit tactics, and a challenging campaign, the gameplay is as challenging as it is very rewarding to those who play it. Yet, it does have some features that come across as problems to other players. The constant cutscenes, the back and forth between menus, and upgrading your troops and weapons can slow the game to a crawl at times. And, let's be honest, the anime design and tropes, alongside its benefits, can lead to some very jarring shifts in tone, which some people can find very weird in combination and confusing on what its overall tone should be. Myself included, despite its story focusing on some very interesting and engaging subject matters within World War II itself. I was not expecting anything like Spec Ops The Line or Call of Duty World at War, but if it did go for that tone, it would have definitely broken the mould and would have made the game stand out even more compared to its other JRPG games. But I would recommend it definitely for the unique experiences you can get with this game. And being available on Steam for £15 and on the PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch, there are plenty of consoles to play this unique game on, and due to this game's success, quite a few sequels would emerge, each varying in success, but none would have the unique visuals of the original's Canvas engine, sadly. Well, I hope you subjects enjoyed this latest broadcast on my latest Conquest, and many thanks for your patience in waiting for this review. Seriously, I had no idea this game would take this long to conquer, and then discuss the many things I had seen and had to explain the way the game functions and operates. but I'll make it up to you lot since I'm a nice warlord. The next game I'll discuss and conquer next time recently reached its 10th anniversary and is still worth playing, inspired by certain games from the early 2000s. What is it? Well, I'll leave it for the masses to figure it out. So, until next time, this is the Warlord signing out.